If you are enjoying this podcast and other podcasts on the Dragon Wagon Radio Network, be sure to check out the Dragon Wagon Shop. Awesome t-shirts and mugs from your favorite shows so you can tout your podcast pride all while supporting your favorite podcast network. And make sure to check it often for new items and limited time designs. Shop now at dragonwagonradio.com/shop and get your dragon swag on. The magic of post-production. Hi, Chad. Thanks for posting this. We miss you.
You know, I have talked to him about like, hey, show me the way you are editing things, what software you use. I will do this when you are unable to, like, say, for the past 4 months.
Right. Hey, now.
And he's never, I mean, that takes time in and of itself just to give me all the passwords and tell me where he's posting the things.
Sure. I mean, Chad's a busy guy.
He is a busy guy.
Chad is one of those guys who the question is he actually busy or does he just seem busy? I feel like Chad could be one of those guys who gets away with not responding to you because you assume Chad's busy.
I have assumed Chad is busy for at least a year.
Like, I have not seen him in a year. I went to his wedding. He no-showed. He was busy, completely busy.
Somebody else, he had a stand-in at the wedding to read his vows. Everybody got the idea, and it was fine. We enjoyed our steak for dinner.
Why don't you rotate that microphone so that it's in between you and I? That way, when you turn your head to look at me, there we go. Now we're cooking with fire.
Do I have to look at you?
I mean, you don't have to, but I am.
It will make it a little easier.
Yeah, there we go. So now it's sounding great.
Facing that way.
Yeah, we're on a podcast.
I guess I'll just start with the intro. Welcome to another episode of The Hell With This. As always, I am your host, Mark Heiliger. And as always, Chad Peter is absent. So I've got a different co-host. We're just getting a cast of characters through this podcast. I am with Jake Lloyd.
Hey, what's going on? I am so happy to finally be joining you, Mark.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you.
I'm bummed that Chad is too cool for us to join us, but also, I get it. I wouldn't want to join me either.
Very busy guy, even though he's unemployed and not on his honeymoon. I don't know what the fuck he's doing.
Wait, did they not honeymoon specifically?
I think they're having like a delayed. They're gonna go take a big trip overseas
when it's more convenient and easier.
Yeah,
that thing where you get married midweek because it's cheap and you inconvenience everybody you know, and then you can't go on a honeymoon because you're like, well, it's an expensive season to honeymoon, so let's wait until 2 years from now.
Let's wait until 2024.
Right, sure.
It's gonna be a much better economic climate.
Right, yeah.
The American dollar will go much further in Italy.
Plus, if you do want to travel out of seas right now, you might not get back in.
Right.
Yes.
There's a small chance that if you look at
I'm picking up what you're throwing down. I get it.
I can't think of the words right now.
Anyways, I'm excited to finally be here and to chat about a movie. Now, here's the thing is that I am really fickle, and you were like, hey, Jake, come on the show and pick a movie. And I couldn't pick one. I couldn't pick a single movie.
So we're going to have a little game where we pick one out of a hat.
Yeah. So
we narrowed down the list, at least.
We've narrowed down my giant list of movies I gave him to 5 movies. And they're all, for the most part, pretty different. They're all from different kind of eras, I would think. Maybe not. Maybe they're all more modern, but whatever. The first movie on the list is a movie that I accidentally discovered while doing that thing where you sometimes just put on like an action movie while you're working. Do you know that thing where you just have something on TV?
Sure.
There was a while where I was specifically putting on subtitled action movies because unless you're looking at the screen, you can't hear it. So it almost just becomes white noise.
So you're talking about The Raid.
No, that's
You're talking about Ong Bak.
Oh, I do love an Ong Bak, though.
Yeah.
But those are the kinds of movies. You're actually right. Those are the kind of movies I would put on. And one day, I just stumbled on Netflix across this movie called The Good, the Bad, the Weird. And I was like, well, that's a great title.
I didn't know that was an action movie. Was it in that genre?
I mean, it is one of my favorite action movies for sure. It is this incredible action, adventure, zany, dark comedy. I don't even know how to describe the movie. I think that's one of the reasons why it struck me. But it was one of those things where I put it on And then, 5-10 minutes into it being on, I realized, oh, I'm not working. I'm just watching this movie because it was so good. And for a subtitled film to, really draw you in, like it's sort of just, you can't, I don't know how to describe what I'm saying here, but like it was like I couldn't stop. Like I had to just watch the movie because I needed to know.
Needed your full attention.
Yes, I needed to know what everybody was saying in their capacity. And it's beautiful. And as a DIY indie filmmaker myself, seeing things in the movie from a filmmaker standpoint, just going like, oh my God, how did they do that? Or, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. That's brilliant. Like there are just certain shots that are just gorgeous. And I know that, the action genre in general has become like a surprising pioneer for great cinematography just because you want to find new ways to show us the same stuff we've seen before,
Mm-hmm.
And that movie, there's one scene in particular that I've seen the behind the scenes of. I say I've seen the behind the scenes of, like I went out of my way. I'm pretty sure it's just over the credits maybe. But where it's in a train and it's just one of those shots where when you see how it's done, you just go like, oh, these guys are no different than like you and I going out on the street
Like
and
it's
just like
total just
shooting
a
a movie.
trick.
Yeah, exactly. So that's on the list. Good, the bad, weird. Another one on the list is Robot and Frank, which is a movie that you said you haven't seen, but you
confused with a movie called Frank.
Yeah, you thought, which is another great movie. Where Michael? Has anybody ever called him Mike before?
Well, you know him really well,
Yeah.
so I think Mike is fine.
I get like real casual with, Mike Fassbender. Mike and I go way back. Yeah, that's a different movie. Robot and Frank is the story of a senior citizen
Played by Frank Langella.
Yes, in a not too distant future, whose children give him like a aid robot, which is sort of the norm. And it's just a really charming, bizarre movie with a cast of incredible actors. And I'm a sucker for anything that's got like a slight sci-fi tinge. I like it when there's a slight sci-fi element to a pretty basic drama, a human drama. I'm a big fan of that.
I hesitate to even bring this movie up because I A, don't want to spoil it, and B, can't remember the title. But it has Elizabeth Moss, and it's one of those mumblecore type movies. We talked about it at a party like last year. And you didn't want to spoil anything from me.
Oh, you're talking about one of my favorite movies of all time, the one I love.
That.
Don't spoil anything for her.
Oh, okay.
I should specify that there is another person in the room currently.
It is
that we don't allow on microphone.
She'll just ruin it if she's on a microphone.
All of a sudden we got real sexist in here. All of a sudden,
but that's another one. It's a very basic human
drama with this.
But there's this little
thing, and that thing is so good. So that's Robot and Frank. So that's going to be in the hat. The other one is Swiss Army Man, which you also never saw. You said you couldn't bring yourself to watch?
I just, every time I look at it, like it's on Netflix.
Is it? Okay.
I've hovered over the icon, and then I remember seeing what's in the trailer and what people have told me about the movie.
Really? I don't remember what's in the trailer
I just
much.
go, Jesus, I don't know if I'm ready for this.
Sure. And you know what?
You've got to be in the right mood.
Listen, what doesn't matter, to hell with it. See what I did there? That's
the origin of the title. You just gotta throw caution to the wind.
That's the point of doing this hat thing too, where once we pick the name out, there's no like negotiating. There's no like, oh, but wait, but we really wanted to watch the other one.
That's 2 out of 3.
Yeah, no. Which, by the way, we're naming all these movies off, and listeners are gonna be like, oh yeah, I really wish they watched that one. I really hope they watch that one.
Maybe next time.
And then so we'll keep all these movies on the list, and I'll force myself back onto the program. The next one on the list is Wish I Was Here, which is a pretty polarizing film by Zach Braff. His, I think it's really his follow-up to Garden State.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he directed anything in between those two.
No, he may have done some TV, but that doesn't count.
No, nobody counts television. It's the 90s. So Wish I Was Here was the movie that Zach Braff kickstarted or whatever, Indiegogo'd the funding for.
Yeah.
And people
Maybe
gave
it was
him...
a GoFundMe.
Yeah. People gave him
he told people he had cancer.
Right.
He asked for some GoFundMe money. And
his dog needed a surgery and he needed to make a movie.
Yeah.
But man, it's a really interesting movie. And I know it's just one of those movies I feel like is a good conversation piece, which is why it was on my list. Because again, it is also kind of polarizing too.
It's polarizing because he doesn't need that money, but
theoretically, also movies are expensive.
Yes.
Like
he's not like Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, I'm gonna
do anything he wants.
I'm gonna defend the guy. Like in the sense that to say, oh, you kicked Ray's money, you can't make your own movie, then that argument should be made of literally everybody who's ever made a movie who is already in the industry. Like, is that how come nobody complains about that?
I think it's rule number 1: don't spend your own money.
Exactly. There you go. Absolutely.
And he couldn't find an actual studio.
No, he couldn't find a studio, which maybe should have been a red flag.
Yeah,
but I don't
and
know.
it also makes me think of the Atlas Shrugged movies.
The Atlas Shrugged?
Do you know what that is? Atlas Shrugged?
No.
That is a novel, a very huge book by Ayn Rand.
Oh.
And it's a science fiction thing.
Okay.
It involves metallurgy and social structure and economics.
Gotcha.
But they made a series of 3 movies based on the book, set more in modern times, not back in the 40s or 50s.
Okay, sure. Like they updated the whole thing. And
Yeah. And their whole, like, the libertarian individualism ethos is like, don't give anybody charity money. Like, you're on your own.
Right.
Your own life is your responsibility. And they went on Kickstarter looking for money.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. But I guess
Art
that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
But I thought that was
Sure.
sort of ironic.
Yeah. So that's where that is. That is on the list. And the last thing on our list is a movie that I think is incredibly underrated. And it feels like a movie that everybody that I know who has seen it loves it. Yet so few people have seen it. And it is and I think it might have been because it was at a low point in the actor's stardom, who was one of my favorite actors of all time, Jim Carrey. And it's Frank Darabont's The Majestic. And I think that a lot of people didn't bother with it because I think maybe it looked boring.
Well, it looked very Capra-esque.
Okay, that's fair.
It looked old school Hollywood filmmaking.
And it is. And it's about old school Hollywood filmmaking.
Yeah,
and it's about old school Hollywood.
Right. And I just think it was at a time where people wanted more Matrix movies.
Oh, maybe.
Not something like that.
Yeah, which is interesting coming from a guy like Frank Darabont, who, you know, you figure like Green Mile and all these other movies that like people really attribute of being like these great, incredible, you know, The Mist is another one of my favorite movies. Although that's also sort of a polarizing movie, I think.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't like that too, but I don't know. Anyway, so those are our movies. Shan't we pick one and dive into
Shan't we?
Shan't we?
Does that have the opposite meaning of shall we?
I don't know. I'm not listen, I didn't know about that Ayn Rand book. I'm not a fancy book learner.
Look, can't we pick a movie now?
Yes, we can. All right, I'm gonna shove our options here in this Gary Fong light sphere that I bought for event photography purposes that I've used mostly for picking movies out of. So I'm
going to get you a hat.
This episode brought to you by Gary Fong light spheres. Pick movies out of them. People are going to be like, I don't know what that is, but I'm going to Google it now.
Google it.
Have fun Googling it. All right. Do you want to do the honors?
No, I think you should. This is all your movie library. So it's your responsibility.
Well, so again, I'm apologizing to listeners if we're going to pick a movie that you don't want to see or you don't want us to talk about, rather. But
just
again,
tune in for the next 80 episodes and we'll get to these other 4.
Yeah, for sure. All right. I have the movie in my hand. It almost leaped out of the unit.
You could cut the tension with a knife.
It is Swiss Army Man.
Oh, shit.
It's time to rip that Band-Aid off. All right, so do we do any sort of prep as far as explaining Swiss Army Man, like in all the details to it?
We could.
Is that what you usually do?
What we think of it right now. I think it's going to be super scatological. I think it's not going to make a whole lot of literal, like real world sense.
Okay.
I think it's going to be one of these movies that will have secondary meaning. It's not just what you're watching.
Oh, see,
it's gonna be
and if it
else.
is, I'm really bad at that. I'm terrible at subtext.
Me too.
And considering
that's why I didn't understand Lost Highway at all.
Sure. It's directed by Dan Kwan, and also written by Dan Kwan and somebody else. And Dan Kwan has also directed a bunch of shorts and nothing really. This is his first big.
I think this is 2 guys, like probably the writers. I don't know if only one of them could get the credit
One
for
of them
DGA.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. They both. I'm sorry. You're right. Daniel Scheinert and Dan Kwan are both co-writers, co-directors.
Yeah. And I've seen one video. Well, I've seen one music video by them. They did the, what is it? Turn Down for What?
Oh, really?
They did that video.
Oh, I wonder if is that what got them this? I don't know.
That could be.
I mean, they wrote it too, so you figure it had to,
Right.
the writing it probably helped. And this is produced by A24, if I'm not mistaken, which is a production company that
They're into all that weird shit.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it. They're into all that weird shit.
And sometimes I don't know anything about their finances or how many hits they've had, but I'm sure it's the kind of thing they'll take chances on weird things.
Yes.
Hoping that at least 1 out of 10 will be huge.
And I feel like a lot of their stuff is sort of like we talked about. It's similar. Actually, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think the one I love might be an A24 film.
I think so.
And so it's that thing where they take things that are sort of like, here's human drama and then here's this weird ass thing. I think they've also did The Lobster.
I love The Lobster.
They did, I just saw that for the first time recently, and that movie.
I found it to be hilarious, and other people just hate it.
I thought it was sad and
it was
awful.
Sad, yes, but also funny.
And great, yeah, and also kind of hilarious. But that's only because I'm a terrible person inside and I have no soul. They also did Kevin Smith's Tusk, so I think like they're sort of capturing that like indie weird world, you know.
In a sense, it sort of feels like they're catching. They're getting the leftovers that the studios kind of pass up.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And I
get
the scraps.
The truth is, I think like anybody,
some of those are still worth making.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like anybody who's complaining about like, oh, there's not enough like original sci-fi, like there is. You're just not watching it. It's all produced by A24. They're making all of it. I feel like Netflix is also trying to get in that game too now with stuff like that movie Mute. I'm not sure if you watched that movie Mute.
Yeah, I hated it.
Oh God, it was so bad.
Yeah.
How did that end up getting finished? I mean, we know exactly how Netflix gave them free reign, and it was bad.
It had all the right pieces, and they came together in such a nonsense kind of way.
Did you enjoy Moon?
Yeah.
You liked Moon?
I like Moon.
See, Moon to me is my absolute favorite movie with the worst ending. Like, I hate the third act of Moon so hard, considering how much I love the first 2 acts of it.
Yeah,
I think that with Moon, like,
with that.
Anytime there's a countdown clock in a movie, and then when the countdown clock ends, nothing happens, you've done a disservice to your audience.
Right. It was purely a way to kind of force people to get involved.
Literally,
only to let them down.
It's literally like pulling people to the edge of their seat only to roll the credits on them and be like, oh, okay, so then the movie's over. Anyways, all right, we're getting on a tangent. A24 made this movie. It stars Paul Dano, who I think most people will probably know him best from
Little Miss Sunshine.
Little Miss Sunshine,
as the
colorblind son.
kid who wouldn't talk.
Yeah, that
until his first word.
Fuck. Yeah, and that man, God, that was a great performance that he gave in that movie.
It was,
and it's got Daniel Radcliffe. So Harry Potter fans, you're in for a treat. That's Harry Potter, right? It's not the other one.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
You thinking of Rupert Grint?
No. I think I confused Daniel Radcliffe and Hobbit. Elijah Wood. Yeah. It's got Mary Elizabeth Winstead. It's got a good cast. And it's a movie. And it's a fucking weird one. So
before we get into it, I feel like we should cover something that we totally blew past at the beginning.
Which is what?
This episode of the podcast sounds very different.
Oh,
because we're using different microphones.
You're recording this. You are actually, for the first time ever, The Hell With This is brought to you from live on tape from Dragon Wagon Studios here at the Dragon's Den. Dragon Wagon
beautiful Radio. Burbank, California.
In beautiful Burbank, California. I've been friends with Mark and Chad for quite some time. And when I started Dragon Wagon Radio, this little network of podcasts, everybody was like, oh, you should, what about, Mark and Chad's podcast? And I was like, well, Mark and Chad didn't tell me they had a podcast. I didn't know they had a podcast.
Yeah, I didn't really tell anybody.
Because they don't advertise. They don't talk about it ever. And we all used to be a part of this rotating door that was Friends in Your Head, or it was called Down in Front, this movie podcast years and years ago.
Only one of those names is not violating copyright law.
Oh, sure.
I don't remember which one.
I think Friends in Your Head was when they changed it to.
Right.
So that's probably the safe one.
Yeah.
In any case, it was exciting to find out that Chad Mark had a podcast that they never told anybody about. And so I was like, hey, you guys should be on the network because...
I think it started as just kind of a lark thing that we were doing for our own sake. And if people online happen to hear about it, all the better.
I remember you told me, like, yeah, we do it because it forces us to hang out and watch a movie together.
Yeah. It's the only time I see Chad.
Right.
There's no social interaction anymore. It's only work now.
Oh, now I feel like a couples counselor all of a sudden. It's like I don't even know who he is anymore.
Yeah.
Do you ever, does he walk in and you hug him and you just feel like he's not really there?
He feels a little hollow. He did tell me earlier today he misses my musk.
Oh.
So I'm going to bottle it and send that to him.
That's a backwards compliment if I ever heard one. I miss the way you stink, man. Yeah, I miss you too, bud. Miss you too.
But we're in the Dragon Wagon studio right now,
Yeah.
which is your living room.
Yeah, which is a lovely 2-bedroom apartment here in Burbank, California.
And I like the setup here. Got a nice window over there.
Yeah, the bay
much
window
bigger
is
than
everything.
the window in my office where we normally record.
If make sure you're following at It's Dragon Wagon on all social media, and you'll see plenty of photos of the Dragon's Den and all the fun stuff that happens within its walls.
Let's have another quick movie talk before we get to our movie talk.
Okay.
You have a big Sin City poster.
Okay, I do have a giant Sin City poster, and
I love the first Sin City movie. I think it's a really enjoyable, like pulpy, just easy story to watch, and it's got that whole comic book style, the black and white, the harshness of it all. There was nothing like it before that.
Yeah,
but then they made the sequel, and that movie sucked. Even though it's the same thing, I don't know why it sucks so much more than the first one. Can you explain that to me?
I never saw the second one.
Oh well,
but the only thing I can assume is that it was simply a law of diminishing returns. I think it was simply because Sin City was so new and unique. Everything was up for grabs as far as a filmmaker and the tools, right?
It did have this freshness to it.
Yeah, and literally every scene in that movie is like, we can do this. Oh, and then we can do this, and then we can do this. It almost feels like when a first-time filmmaker like puts all of their ideas into their very first movie, and then they have to make a second movie, and they're like, oh shit, now I don't have any more ideas left. And that's sort of what I could assume it was like. I think it was simply love, but again, I haven't seen it, so I don't know exactly. I can't judge it. But Sin City, that first movie, I saw that movie in the theaters more than any other movie in history. Now, admittedly, it was not on purpose. It was like I went and saw it by myself, and then like a group of friends later in the week was like, hey, we're gonna go see Sin City. Want to come? And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll go see Sin City. And then like I went on a date, and the girl was like, oh, I haven't seen Sin City yet. I want to see that movie. And I was like, all right. So like I accidentally saw it 5 times in the theater.
Not this girl.
No, this
awkward.
This was a different. She's a better girl that's with me now.
Okay,
than
good.
The other one.
Good.
I have to say that because she's close enough to punch me. But I love that first movie. Now people walk into the apartment and they see that because it's a really large official like 40 by 27 poster,
and it's bright red.
Now here's the thing: is if you'll notice the room, what are the color schemes?
You got some grayish blue and red.
Yeah, exactly. It's gray, dark blue, and then red, and all of the photos.
Red frames on District 9.
Exactly. So
Casablanca.
The poster wasn't a poster that I purchased. The poster came free when I bought a secondhand bed on Craigslist. So the guy was like, "Oh, I also have this poster. You want it?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, I want it. It's awesome Sin City poster."
I'm also interested about the time you got the secondhand Craig on bed list.
Shut your face. I tried to fucking blow right past it. Listen, I'm a Long Islander, and my brain works quicker than my mouth does. So sometimes I push words out, and they're not the appropriate words. But in any case, it ended up becoming like the focal point of my entire living room, just because it was like the right color scheme. And so that's the story of the Sin City poster.
So it's not even that you're a huge fan of the movie.
No, it is again, and I am.
Like you like the movie, but it's not why you have the poster.
But it's not. It wasn't
That's
like I have to show my love. Also, it's not even like a poster for all of the movie. It's a poster just of Marv. It just says Ricky Mork as Marv, and it's a picture of Marv walking.
All the modern like big superhero movies, they always do these character posters now. I hate that crap. It's like they're trying to encourage you to collect them all if you like the movie.
Capitalism, am I right, people? Do you do that?
I just don't like the style of poster. Like, here is one person in the movie that tells you nothing about the movie with his character's name on his forehead.
But I think that you are describing something that's very specific to a franchise that has been around for a long time. Oh, maybe not. You know what? You're wrong. I mean, I'm wrong. You're right. See what I mean about the whole brain thing?
They even did it with Bad Night at the El Royale.
I was going to go back a little bit further, and an even worse movie, McFarlane's Western movie that he made, like A Million Ways to Die or something like that. Yeah. I remember all of the different posters. I think it's because whenever there's a big stars in the movie, it's like, oh, that movie has that person in it. And then you see a poster down the road, like, oh my God, it also has that person in it.
I think the first time I remember seeing the character posters was Thor back in like 2010.
Really? The first Thor movie?
Yeah.
I don't know.
They had one for Thor. They had one for Odin. They had one for Loki.
Oh, right. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean,
I'm sure Marvel movies
I'm sure it's happened way before then, but it is a fad that here in LA, I bet you we see more than anywhere else, because like
for sure
they will just line the blocks with them, like the fences along the streets with them.
5-mile radius around Universal. You're gonna see billboards for every Universal movie out there. Right
and
now.
You'll also see every version of the billboard for every universe. All right. Should we watch this movie?
We should watch Swiss Army Man. Here
Let's
we go.
do it.
You know, I'd always hoped that right before I died, my life would flash before my eyes and I would see wonderful things. But as I was hanging up there, I didn't really see much of anything. But I did see you. This is crazy. I thought you were dead. Am I dead? I don't think so. You're talking. Hi. You're special. I'm special. You're like the multi-purpose tool guy. And that's why I need you to help me get home.
You want to go home so you can have love. But you ran away because nobody loves you.
Shut up! You can't just say everything that comes into your head. That's bad talking.
Oh.
Oh! It's moving!
What's happening?
Manny, I think your Wang is guiding us home. It's magic. People don't like other people's farts.
Is that why you don't fart in front of me?
I just like to do it alone. Or hold it in. That's what you're supposed to do.
That's so sad.
We sang and we danced, and it was beautiful. God, no. Well, don't be afraid.
And we are back from Swiss Army Man, or alternate title, Multifunction Tool Guy.
Multifunction tool guy. That happened. That movie happened.
I cannot believe even A24 paid out a bunch of money to make this thing.
Okay, so
It's I'm glad it is a real movie. I'm glad
Right?
it exists.
that's kind of what I told you earlier.
but it
like,
would be such a hard sell.
oh my God, how do you? All right,
Okay, we're gonna get Paul Dano and Daniel Radcliffe, and one of them plays like a zombie sort of, and it's like one man's exploration of his innermost fears.
and it's literally like the explanation of a man's perception of what life is in its simplest terms.
Yeah, it's
As-
like he's explaining it to an alien or something.
Yeah, or a baby, or
Yeah.
like somebody who like just figures out sentience. You know what I mean? It is such. It might be the weirdest movie I've ever seen. But I think one of the reasons I loved it so much, and I will say, better the second time around.
Okay.
The first, not that I didn't like it the first time around. Again, there's a reason I mentioned it to have be one of our options on the show today. But, and I know we have a lot to talk about, I'm sure, but. We're gonna skip way further, just to the very end, really quickly.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. We're
Yeah,
talking about the end of the movie here.
I think one of the reasons why it's better the second time around is knowing that very end scene where we come full circle around. By the way, if you would have told me like, all right, I've got a movie for you, it starts and ends with a dead dude farting on a beach. And
And
the
behaving
emotional,
like a jet ski.
yeah, and the emotional ride in between those 2 points is going to be great. I would have been like, you're fucking ridiculous. But in any case, knowing that ending, it's an easier watch because I don't know how you felt watching it for the first time as I did, where
Emotionally confused.
so emotionally confused, but also once he's back to society proper and he's, and the camera crew is there, and they're, wrapping up the dead body. They're wrapping up Daniel Radcliffe's character. The anxiety of not knowing whether the creators of this movie are going to just bring you on this ride and then just end it in the saddest way possible. As like, no, reality is this is a sad, twisted man who everything we saw was in his head
More or less.
More or less. In his head, he's just been with this dead fucking corpse. Can I curse? I can curse in your podcast.
Totally fucking curse.
He's just been with this dead corpse, obsessed about this person who, by the way, he was clearly in the backyard of the whole time. So you know that that's specific.
Right.
And then that brings you all these questions of like, was he really ever lost at sea in the first place? Was that whole beginning all nonsense? Has he just been living literally in the wilderness behind this woman's house, obsessed with her like a psycho? And all of that, like, you know, all of that to be like, it's just really how this movie ends. And I remember the first time I watched it, I was like,
You were
angry.
expecting the credits to roll any second
Yes,
there.
and just
Like
being
with,
like
with what's her name? The actress?
the main actor, the main character.
Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
Yes, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, right there on screen.
Right
yeah.
on screen. I expected the credits to come up as she's in the background looking at
the
her own
phone.
picture on his phone,
Yes.
going like, is this crazy person, has he been stalking me?
Right.
And right as they cut to the live news, I expected it to go out, but we keep going.
Right. And I'm glad it kept going because
yeah.
that's what saved this movie for me.
Right.
Because this movie, I mentioned in our little, precursor to watching how I felt about Moon, about how I felt like Moon was such an incredible movie to me up until the countdown clock ended, and then
We don't see what happens.
they took
after
and then
that.
they took everything. They took all of my expectations. They took everything that I thought could, all of the different angles I saw this going.
all
They
of the mental capital you invested in the movie
Yes.
was
Ooh,
wasted.
mental capital. I'm going to
Yeah.
use that one. That's a good one. Yeah, and they swept it out from under me, and they just went meh.
Yeah.
And this movie, I felt like they were going to do that, and then they didn't, because
Right.
that ending with him just going out, and it's still like I still don't know what to make of it in its entirety.
Yeah, it's hard to interpret this in a literal way and know what's actually happening at any given moment.
Sure. I mean, so all right. So let's get into that. For me personally, I have not done enough drugs in my life
No,
to
me
wrap
neither.
my head around this movie.
And I haven't spoken with Michelle Gondry enough either.
right.
Makes sense of
Right.
it.
So for me personally, if I was the filmmaker, I assume that the filmmaker, despite the subtext of, like you said, this like person exploring their innermost fears in this way, despite all of that, the way I saw it was everything that we saw happened. That's what I like. That's how I leave
That's
this.
how you see the movie.
That's how I see the movie.
Everything we saw.
Everything
was
we
real.
saw was real. He brought a dude back because of the power
Like
of love.
he really was on an island, and he really did jet ski to the Pacific Northwest.
Yes, yeah. That's my perception of it.
It takes a lot of faith.
And it might be because
to go with that.
it might be because I want it to be that way based on how the movie ends.
Right.
And so whether or not that is just my optimist sort of like want to feel good thing because it's such a zany, ridiculous, horrifying
Like
story.
once you go with the idea in the
Yes.
first place, it's hard
Yes.
to suddenly drop that and go, oh, well, he's just crazy.
Right, yeah, this is like Shutter Island or some movie like that where it's like really heady, like or Fight Club. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Where it's like, oh, it was just that kind of thing.
Well, here's what I think. I think it sort of is both.
Okay.
I think it is clearly he was camping out without
Right.
a tent in the wilderness behind Mary's house.
Right.
Or what's her name in the
Sarah,
Sarah.
yeah.
Sarah. He really was back there in real life, and he was going through all this stuff in his head with the dead body,
Right.
Manny. But then we break to reality. We see the way the world treats him
Right.
within a couple minutes.
Right.
His dad shows up, doesn't even want to identify what he thinks is his dead body.
son's
his son's dead body. And he just walks away shaking his head.
Right.
He'd rather not deal with it.
Yeah.
That was his dad.
That was his
And that's
dad.
how the
Yeah.
person who raised him
Right.
or
Yeah.
not.
That is the ultimate reinforcement of his worldview that
Yeah.
nobody cares and that I am not worth anything
Right.
in that moment.
Like what Manny, who has sort of embodied his subconscious or his unconscious,
whatever you want to
phrase
call that. Yeah.
The whole running joke of the movie is like, oh, you're garbage. Nobody likes you.
Yeah.
You're weird and ugly.
Yeah.
And no one would actually throw you away, so you ran away.
So he ran away. Yeah.
That's just his internal,
Yeah.
like the feedback loop happening in
that's
his
just
brain.
the wheel spinning.
Yeah. But okay, the very end,
Right.
we break back out of reality to Daniel Radcliffe farting
Taking
on the
off
beach
with a big
and
smile on his face.
taking off out into the ocean, have more Manny adventures, I guess.
Yeah.
I think that is Paul Dano's final like recognition. How do I phrase this? That's him going with his own version.
That's him deciding that this world is not worth it.
Right.
That I like my world better.
Exactly. He's
Right.
making the choice to leave the real world behind.
Sure.
And he's happier.
He's happier in his head.
He's happier in the world where Manny is a superpowered corpse that can chop tree trunks in half.
Yeah, and shoot bullets and water and all of the other things. Like, what are all the things that we saw him do? All right.
Yeah, the first thing
The very first thing, obviously, was he could fart.
The farting, yeah.
Which, by the way, is let's break this down. Is there a better opening to a movie in history from the second we see the first, frame of picture, right, to the title sequence? It is the weirdest.
On its own, it's an incredible short film.
And
I'm
really
sure that's
feels
how
that
it
way.
was like conceived.
Yeah, I'm
like,
sure
how this whole thing took off. It was like, well, what if somebody found a
and it
flatulent
farted and
body?
it saved them off of a deserted island. But
Yeah.
the fact that it goes on so long, also the use of dialogue-driven music
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
is in that opening sequence when he just starts singing
Well, as he's hanging himself, he's kind of doing it there. He's humming it.
and that's where it sort of
And
begins.
then as he runs out to save Manny, he turns into
adds
Score.
the other layer to it or something like that. Yeah.
And later, Manny starts going, "Ba, ba, ba,
Yeah,
ba,
yeah,
ba,
that
ba."
happens
What are you doing?
quite
Oh,
a
I'm
few
singing a
times.
song.
Yeah, I'm singing so you won't overanalyze the moment. Yeah. But that is brilliant. And I just think that whole opening sequence, the fact that it builds all the way up to literally him just smiling and riding Radcliffe across the ocean. And also, I'm a sucker for any time you can get a laugh out of a title card. I'm a real sucker for that. And
Yeah,
the
the
fact
super
that
wide shot, they're jet skiing across the bottom of the frame,
super
and
wide-
then a big Swiss Army man.
and then cut to their names, cut to the
Oh,
top
yeah.
of, and it's him
slow
like,
motion writing
but
Daniel
it's
Radcliffe.
him like pulling really big, like he's Aquaman riding a fucking
He's riding a dolphin.
Yeah, exactly. And he smiles real big, and then his name's on the screen, and then it cuts to Daniel Radcliffe's dead corpse's face just in
sort
the
of, like,
water.
quivering in the water.
I mean, it's so fucking bizarre.
It's super bizarre,
But
but
it-
there's so much creativity behind this movie.
And that's why I said I don't think I've ever smoked enough of anything or done enough drugs to be able to even write something like this.
Yeah.
And it always fascinates me when there's something that I see that I go like, God, how can, like, I don't even know. Even if I did think of that, I wouldn't think, no, really, that's the thing.
Well,
Yeah,
let's get into that. I think me and Chet have both said on this podcast before, we don't know how to be creative anymore.
Right.
We're too old and we've done normal jobs for so long.
Sure.
Like we don't operate on that level.
It's hard to
just mentally.
challenge. It's hard to challenge your own
There's
critic.
There's
your
an
own
inner
self-critic.
censor. Yeah.
Yes. Of like,
Where you
well,
go
that's
like,
you can't do
ugh.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
but
stupid.
These guys apparently they love the cartoon logic. I've seen it in their short films.
Yeah.
Can't remember the name of it, but they have a
By
website called like Daniel.
Yeah, and they
.us or
call
something.
their unit Daniels in the beginning of the movie. It said a film by Daniels.
Yep.
I guess that's sort
They're
of
both
what
named
they.
Daniel.
Yeah, that's what they call their kind of team unit.
Yeah, that they.
Yeah, they're definitely
in
a theater
every
of the
element
bizarre.
of this
Yeah.
movie, there you could just see it at work. And I mentioned Michel Gondry already, but
Right,
he's
yeah.
another one of those people.
Yes.
Something like Be Kind,
Be Kind,
Rewind.
Rewind. I was gonna say when we were watching this movie, at one point I went, I want to rewatch Be Kind, Rewind because the construction of the entire bus and all the stuff that he built
Yeah.
out in the woods.
It's
that-
this childlike glee behind
Oh my-
everything
That's perfect.
that is elevated to the extreme.
Yeah.
Like,
When-
what if adults actually thought like children
and
do?
that
And
that's actually one of my notes
you
too.
can make a fort out of whatever you have lying around.
Yeah, that was my note. One of my notes too, or was it here? Was yeah, exactly. Life through the eyes of a child,
Mm-hmm.
and him being such a romantic. The main character being like Hank is his name, right?
Yes.
Like the fact that the way that he spoke, he was sort of a poet. The way that he spoke and the way that he painted pictures, like he spoke like a writer. You know what I mean? Like this is one of those movies where like the dialogue that's not fart related is for the most part like a really beautiful, elevated, it's almost soliloquy at time where he is answering these questions about life when he's built the entire window panel that
Yeah, he's built a
moves-
little mechanism to like roll these magazine pages glued together with spit.
Right, yeah,
past the
yeah.
window.
For all we know, or who knows where that glue came from off of the Swiss Army Man. Yeah.
And Manny's perspective is this is all new,
Exactly.
and he sees life as like all the great things of life are laughing and dancing and looking out the bus window.
Yeah, exactly. And
Just
when
all the things around us
man,
that we never notice.
when I get back to life, I'm gonna ride the bus every day. He says, like, but yeah, there's that.
There's
that,
something simple.
There's something really simple, and there's something so endearing about the movie. Like, it really, I think, for a movie that starts with a fart joke that goes on so long that it becomes unfunny and then refunny again.
The very first fart, he kind of notices it happening,
Right.
And then he takes a second and goes, "Oh, that's funny."
That's funny. He goes, "All right, that's funny." Yeah.
And then the kid at the end, when he starts farting again,
Starts
the
giggling.
kid is the only one laughing.
Oh wow, that's really poignant. That's that whole
All
like
the adults are kind of like shocked what is
yeah, like,
happening
what is-
with this
although
corpse on the beach.
I didn't. How do you interpret the dad's look
His
at
little
the end?
like smiling nod,
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, you show him, son."
Yeah.
I
Like-
think again that is Hank's. That's
Oh.
Hank's version. That's Hank's
Right.
world where he finally gets the approval of his dad.
Oh God, that's
Where he's
that's
no
so
longer
fu-
the
yeah.
weird son who is hanging out with a corpse behind the
No, he's-
stalking victim's house.
he's made his dad proud.
He's made his dad proud because he proved everybody wrong.
Oh God, that does make it kind of sad.
Yeah, but it's like in real life, he's going to an institution forever.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that I said when we were making the movie, when we were making it, I wish we made it. Oh God, I wish I made this movie. I said when we were watching the movie, during that scene where he's building the bus and shit like that, I said like, this is a production designer's dream, and you went, or nightmare.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're right, but
Because everything is so complicated, like it matches
Super
the real
complicated.
version so closely, but
Yeah.
it's all made out of junk and twigs
Yes.
and leaves and stuff. Anything you could find out in the forest.
but
there.
not for nothing. This is one of those things that I, as a filmmaker, I myself pride myself on. I was one too many myselfs. I realized I was turning into Austin Powers there. I was like, introduce myself. Anyways, I myself pride myself, I'm gonna do it again, on the things that may be small and meticulous but won't be costly are the things worth doing when you're making a low budget movie or no budget movie.
Right.
And
It would have taken time, and that's it.
yes, exactly. And this movie is really like a perfect example of the do more with less indie film, because the majority of this movie is every indie movie you've ever seen. Hell, I've made one of two dudes out in the woods by themselves with no other characters, and yeah, there were some visual effects in the movie. They're not incredibly well done. Like, I mean, they're fine, but they're
Right.
low budget special
like even,
effects. They're not like,
even Manny falling out of a tree.
Yes.
It looks very bad.
but you know what
but
though?
you
but
get
it's-
past it so quickly.
Do you want to know why? It's because they did it stylistically.
Yes.
They made stylistic decisions with the really quick whips with the cartoon stop motion. Which, so what you did there was you took something that could have been a massive budgetary restriction and you used it to your benefit to create a style. All of that bizarre stop motion VFX style. I mean, it is a part of this movie. It's a part of this movie's identity as much as the words are and the actors are, I think.
Yeah.
But aside from that, the art department is this movie. Like the creation of those things and those set pieces when they're at the party.
If all of that was done badly, it would not be the same movie.
That's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's also what, at least for me, like you remember of the movie visually. When you think of this movie visually, yeah, you probably have the view of him sliding across the Pacific, which is probably the most expensive stuff in the movie, probably. But I think of like that giant set piece in the wilderness with the big party and all of these giant human-sized dolls that he's created and he's rigged. And that's the stuff that, like, you know, I don't know how the directors direct and how they work with their art department, but I could see the productions. I don't know who it was. I really kind of wish I knew who the production on this movie was, but like I could see that relationship being the most crucial relationship to these directors outside of the relationship with their actors.
Yeah.
Whereas like if they don't see the vision that the director has, or if they aren't, or if the director isn't the kind of people, I guess, who say like, listen, you do make this your own, which totally could have
They
happened.
could be totally hands off.
Totally.
We don't know.
And it's just so much part of the movie. And like, again, as a filmmaker myself, you know, I do no budget, you know, no permits, no crew.
Guerrilla filmmaking.
Total guerrilla. But the thing that I get complimented on all the time is like, oh, how did you guys shoot in a hospital? And I'm like, oh, we didn't shoot in a hospital. I spent the time to set dress a corner of a lobby in an apartment building as best as possible to make it appear, because that's what I can do.
Yeah.
Because I can figure out the visual thing where that's a bunch of paper and a plant and this and
making sure you're getting this angle and that angle. How can I just make that background?
And exactly. And also all of those tiny details. It's once you see those tiny little details, then it just gets sold, and all of a sudden you have production value. And then that's it. This movie, I'm sure this movie was a low budget movie.
Yeah.
But with that said, a low budget meaning still had some money.
I'm gonna quick look that up.
Sure, check it out. And it's not on the Vudu screen, is it? We watched our movie on Vudu here.
I don't think they
More
keep the
info?
budgetary.
No, I mean, you never know. It might be connected to IMDb. It's the 90s. Yeah, no dice.
Of course, I'm using the IMDb app now. I don't know if that even.
Oh, I love the IMDb app. I'm all about the IMDb. In any case, yeah.
This episode brought to you by IMDb.
Oh, that would be great.
And Amazon, who owns IMDb.
Oh, that's right. I forgot, because now you can get your IMDb Pro account through your Amazon Prime account. But anyways, what I'm getting at with this whole budgetary thing is this movie is a masterclass of keep it simple, but don't be lazy. There's a total difference.
It can be simple and not boring.
Yes, it can be simple and not boring, and also unique. Like, this is, again, I wish that I had the mental capacity to make this movie. I watch a movie like this and I go, oh, I'm not going to succeed as a filmmaker because my brain works in such a real world drama. My debut feature film is a film called Pinch. That, geez, don't know when.
Okay, enough with the plugging.
Don't know when it's gonna. It's literally the first time I mentioned it. Don't know when I'm gonna be able to find distribution for this movie. Hopefully, people can watch it soon. But it is super real world. The problems that you have with the people around you, and it's very real. And every time I watch a movie by A24 or my creative partner Tony Wayne, who's the actor and leading all my movies, stuff like that, we love this stuff so much, but we are not. Whenever our brain doesn't go there, you know what I mean? But a movie like this, if you're an aspiring filmmaker out there, I'm not saying copy a movie like Starman, but I'm saying this is what's going to get you attention versus my movie, which is one of a billion movies that are that real world drama slice of life.
That is true. Swiss Army Man's weirdness was totally played up in the trailer, which is why it took me so long to watch it. Finally,
yeah.
And that's what got it attention on the festival route,
I think Sundance was its first. It premiered at Sundance, and then that's where A24 picked it up and was like, we'll distribute it. I don't think it was made. I don't think A24 made it. I think A24 picked it up and distributed it. I could be wrong about that, but we
pride ourselves on not doing any research on this show.
In fairness, we picked the movie out of a hat today, so we would have had to done research for the six movies, the 5 movies. Yeah. But. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Let me ask you this, because we haven't really just gone ahead and said it. Did you like the movie?
I did like it, yeah. And I would recommend it.
Was there?
It took me.
Go ahead.
I mean, as I've mentioned, it just. I was never in the right mood, I thought, to watch it, because I thought the whole thing was going to be fart jokes.
Right.
And it is amusing that a lot of these things he does are fart powered, but it's not. It's not that crass.
No, and
there really is more going on.
Also, the fart is the thing that it's the fact that we're saying it so much. Is the thing that establishes the general premise of the movie, and you need that general premise to carry any sort of the emotional baggage that comes with it, and that is that literally he is going to be saved by this super powered dead thing that can do anything he needs it to do in that time. It gives him whatever he needs, whether fresh water out of his mouth, which is so gross.
Not fresh anymore.
Like we were saying, the other things he can do, he could chop, he's a super powered arm, he could chop wood, he could shoot things out of his mouth, including a grappling hook.
And pebbles in a shotgun fashion.
He can make a shotgun, he can make a dart, he can make arrows, he can start fires by snapping his fingers together.
That'll make a spark. And I had some problems with the science in this movie. Because the actual spark is some matter that is igniting. So if his fingers are making a spark, his fingers would be blackened by that.
Well, maybe it's because he's a corpse. His skin is so dry. I don't know. I
don't know. Overthinking it, clearly.
I love that. I jealous the science of this movie. All right, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Hank was shaving with
he shaved with his teeth. Oh, that's the
grossest. The hair out of his mouth.
Yeah. We talk about how intimate these two actors must have had to get with each other creating this movie, but
using each other's spit for things.
You know what? They have such great chemistry
Yeah.
incredible chemistry. And
From the first word Daniel Radcliffe says, "Okay, buddy,"
yeah,
it's just like, okay, I'm into this.
I mean, yeah, this I will say, this the first time I watched this movie, it was a roller coaster. It started and the title rolled, and I was like, this is the best movie ever. Right? I was like, this is what is happening. I'm so invested. And then when he made his way to the cave that they spent a lot of time in at first, then I was sort of like, oh, wait a minute. Is this going to be because it makes
It's
you
gonna be a whole movie of a guy talking to a corpse.
yeah, is this going to be
Oh, no.
Castaway, the new Castaway? And then it brings me back once his eye starts twitching and he starts coming back to life. And then Daniel Radcliffe delivers what it's such an underrated performance. I mean, how people think like, oh, it must have been easy. You just don't do anything with your body. The amount of control over your limbs that a performance like this takes, and just control over your body, the delivery of lines, the voice that he put on, because God, that must have been a tough thing to do to kind of talk in the back of your throat with everything and to deliver it consistently.
In an American accent for a non-American.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. In an American accent. That's right.
Yeah.
Fucking Harry
It's like
Potter.
doing two funny voices at the same time.
Wow.
It's like Bugs Bunny's impression of Elmer Fudd.
Well, that's like when people can do an impression of somebody doing an impression, that kind of thing. Yeah. I mean, an incredible performance. Then the scene with the bear where he finally gets his kind of controls his body.
Yeah, he can
I know
walk.
that they definitely. I think there was definitely a little bit of there was some camera trickery there. Like I said, there might have been some of that fun
Wire
stop
removal.
motion or the wire removal stuff. But
Like when he gets
when
he's
he
in a
throws his
downward
hips
dog
up.
position.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was something pulling him up.
Sure.
Unless he's got intense ab strength.
I thought. See, it was funny. You went wire pulling. I went camera trick. I felt like they slid
was
frames
too-
out. I think they slid frames out of him moving
Oh.
his feet forward. So he did like a sort of a Michael Jackson moonwalk instead of. But you could be right. It could have just been a wire.
Yeah.
But in any case, the fact that we don't know when we're filmmakers and overanalyze shit like that is great. that means you succeeded as filmmakers.
Right.
Because I don't know how you fucking did that. But there was definitely some of that. With that set aside, still the physical performance that he gave in this movie is incredible.
Yeah, he's very good.
He was really good.
And he's funny without moving his face that much. That's the biggest trick in the world.
That's true. They got a ton of comedy out of just
his blank
just
face
a blank
going
face
like,
and a voice.
Oh, well, why do people do that?
I mean, total grossness aside, the sound design in the movie is also fantastic.
Yeah.
The fact that they every time he moves a bone snaps.
There's there's
you
twisting sinew
You
and
can hear the rigor mortis. It's fucking terrifying.
and that's why the snap works so good. The rigor mortis.
Oh, see, there you go. Yeah, I mean, what else? There was so much.
You know
in this
what?
movie.
I wonder if this was inspired by that movie Rookie of the Year. The kid breaks his shoulder and it heals a little too tight, so now he can pitch 120
all right,
miles per hour.
I got to pitch a movie for you. It's half Rookie of the Year, half Weekend at Bernie's,
Half Castaway.
half Castaway. That's three halves. It doesn't work.
It's fine. It's a big movie.
It is a very
three
big
halves.
movie. Yeah. I'm not sure.
Oh, one more thing he can do. He can bite through rope with his teeth.
Oh yeah, that's right. His teeth are just generally super smart. Super sharp was the
Super
word I meant to
sharp
say.
teeth, yeah.
Let me ask you about the phone.
Okay.
And as a first-time viewer, what can you tell me?
I don't know what brand it was.
iPhone, probably an iPhone. They're always iPhones. What was the story of the phone? Where did it come from? What was the I'm curious as to your opinion on that, because I wrote down a note that wasn't what I thought this time, but something I remembered from watching it the first time.
You know, I wasn't thinking of that specifically. I was still kind of going with the actual cinematic introduction. He's stuck on an island. It's just his phone.
Right.
We kind of see a flashback to him on the bus when he took the picture over his shoulder, not even looking. And I don't think the picture on the phone really matched up with that moment, because she is looking dead into the lens.
Yeah, she's glancing at him.
Yeah, going like, weird, creepo, don't take my picture. But as far as like how long he's actually been out there.
So Pod Dog is barking at you. Campfire, come here, bud. We're trying to talk about movies. He's like, I don't want to talk about movies.
I've had enough.
Yeah.
Um,
Anyways, ignore him.
As far as how long he's actually been out there and why the battery starts at 10%, and we ended up getting down to like 1% by the end of the movie. I don't know what the story of the phone is.
See, when I first watched this movie, I had a question about whether or not the phone really was the dead guy's phone. And I struggled with that at first.
Well, didn't he have the phone before we saw
No, I
Daniel
think
Radcliffe?
no, and that's what it confused me. And like rewatching it, it's still kind of vague which I don't know if it was intentional or if it was just a situation of like, oh, we could have used an insert of it. But when he was pulling Daniel Radcliffe over, like when he was like,
That's when we see it the first time?
that's when it stumbles and it falls out. And I remember the first time I watched it thinking it fell out of the corpse's pocket.
Oh.
Because it was in like, you know what I mean?
I don't really remember that at all.
See, but then I realized afterwards, like, oh no, it was in a Ziploc bag, probably because he specifically put it in a Ziploc bag if it was indeed his phone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When he was stranded on this island. But I don't know. I feel like the whole phone device was.
And then there's a big. I punched your dog in the nose.
That's right.
There's a big revelation when he goes, "Sorry, Manny, I
lied to
gotta
you.
tell you the truth.
Yeah.
This is actually my phone, and I was scared of this girl on the bus."
Right. And I feel like that was when the first time I watched it, I went, okay, is he lying now? Is
Right,
he saying
trying
that
to-
because he wants
trying
to
to
steal the girl?
Steal the girl from Manny. Yeah.
Yeah. Or and so
I
there
was afraid it was going to go that way, where it would become like a guy fighting his dead friend over. a girl.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, there's just a lot of little things. You know, that reminds me of another thing to go back to the whether or not what we saw was real kind of thing.
Mhm.
I'm a fan of whenever there's something in a movie that like only one person can see or that kind of thing, coin of thing. That was a weird way to say
Coin
that.
of thing.
I'm always fascinated by perspectives. I'm a fan. There's a movie called
Fight Club.
I want to say, oh, that's true. But I was gonna say, is it called The Beginners? Maybe where with Ewan McGregor, where every now and then the dog has lines.
I don't remember that.
It's a
at all.
great movie. Put it on the list for the show. It's a fun movie, super sad, but also really touching. And Ewan McGregor is incredible. And every now and then they cut to the dog, and he looks at the dog, and then the dog has like a little subtitled line, and he goes, "I know," or he's like, you know what I mean? Like,
Is
it's
the
a weird.
dog barking or just
No,
staring at him?
I'm pretty sure it's just staring at him, and it just
That's
has a
hilarious.
line. Yeah, and it doesn't happen enough to make it like a big part of the movie. It was only happens like 3
it's not
times.
about the dog.
Yeah, which is I
talking
love
to
it.
him.
But there's this weird thing that happens with perspective where when you see the other side of it, you generally know, oh, okay, he can't. Or have you seen the TV show Wilfred? Better example.
Never seen it, but I know of it. Yeah.
Okay, like seeing the other side of it where he's just talking to this actual dog, right? Towards the end of it, when they, spoilers at the end of it, they show everything and blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
But the shot in the very end when they're in the backyard and it's from the inside of the kitchen and we see Sarah doing like dishes or something and we see them like kind of crawling towards it or fighting a little bit towards the outside.
Right. Is that
The fact that
she's
she's
not-
there in
she's
the
not
foreground.
looking
I
out the
know.
window?
Yeah. And the question
we're
is,
just inside?
if she turned her head and looked, what would she see? And
Right.
that is brilliant filmmaking. That is such a great shot because it screws with the viewer's perspective.
Yeah,
of,
it could go either way depending on how you remember the scene.
exactly. And it's one of those like, oh, I'm going to leave it up to the viewer moments, which sometimes I hate in movies.
And
But-
even the little girl's dialogue when she's talking to them or him
Right.
just solo.
Although the thing
She's
is,
going like, "Are you dressed up for Halloween?" But even Paul Dano was a little bloodied
yeah,
up
yeah,
and
it
muddy
could
and
be
stuff.
either way. Although I think there was one line that was very clearly, something that Daniel Radcliffe's character said that she responded to.
Oh.
Maybe not though. Maybe it was just like the farting or
yeah,
something.
he's the one who said, "Oh no, we just need some help." And then
Right.
later the girl says, "The last thing I said was they need help."
Right. Oh, good catch.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, and this movie is fascinating. Again, better the second watch. It was less emotionally like grueling, which isn't a bad thing, by the way, when you're watching a movie. But again, when you have gone on when someone has taken you for a walk like this movie does, you know what I mean, or a jog, really. When you're unsure of when you don't have confidence in the filmmaker, it could be stressful, And then
yeah,
even though
you don't know where you're going.
you start going, do I like this movie? You know what I mean? And then you start going like, I don't know if I like this movie anymore.
But yeah, I can see on the second try after you liked it the first time, now
Yeah.
you can be totally into it, totally
Yeah.
invested.
And also I think that the second time around, I listened a lot more to the words being said, specifically when it was just the two of them by themselves.
Yeah.
Whereas the first time watching it through, I remember being more captivated by the visuals of what they're building and all the like we talked about earlier, all the little like art department stuff. But then also just like you're caught up in the weirdness of the moment. because it's like, oh, he's like you're trying to analyze everything. Like, this is dead dude, and he's got this thing, and he's standing him up and dancing this fucking dead corpse. But but what happens is then you're not really paying attention as much to all of this beautiful monologuing essentially that Hank does.
Right. The more you can see Manny as a character instead of the weird corpse that he's hanging out with,
Sure,
the better it'll work.
Yeah.
And I feel like I did that fine.
Yeah, did you? Yeah, I
my
think
first
that
time.
I might just have been a little bit more hypocritical watching it like the first time around. I don't know. Yeah, this, like you said, you didn't watch this movie for a while because of you like, oh, I'm in the right mood, right headspace.
Yeah.
This is definitely, I think, a movie that if you're not in the right headspace for, you could leave disliking.
There was some truth in advertising for sure.
Yeah.
If you saw the commercials, you know what you're in for. So I don't think anyone could ever turn this on thinking they're going to get like a real deep,
Right.
dramatic, like
Right.
a serious film. But if that is what you're expecting for some unknown reason, yeah, you'll walk away a little unhappy.
Sure.
But I think it could win you over regardless.
Right. I was just looking to see it has a 70% on the tomato meter on Rotten Tomatoes.
Not quite fresh, not certified fresh.
Not certified fresh, and some of the reviews are interesting. I don't know if you ever do this in your show, but I like reading reviews sometimes.
How dare you change the format?
I enjoy this. Even the most outrageous, self-consciously broad touches, such as the numerous fart jokes, have the crystalline feeling of situations you might encounter in a dream, and that plays itself to your like Michel Gondry-esque sort of feeling.
Sometimes you don't remember all the details of your dreams, but you'll be like, I don't know, there's a guy and he kept farting.
right.
That's the idea for this movie.
Depends on how well you memorize your dreams too. But this one, it says like if you stick with it, there's a chance it'll grow on you as it grew on me, and you'll be rewarded with maybe the best ending of any movie so far this year. So that like falls on me where I was like, God, that ending is so great. But then some people are kind of mean to it, and they say like, oh, it's failed in its attempt at cleverness. It veers into sentiment and the inevitable last resort. This movie falls flat at that too. Like, so it definitely has. It's kind of polarizing in that sense. This is frustrating. Swiss Army Man debuts a unique creative sensibility that its makers are unable to sustain.
See, I disagree with that. I think it was absolutely sustained through the whole movie.
Oh, I think that they did a great job of building without ever, with the cards never stumbling.
If there was a montage at the beginning of the movie where he kind of discovers every one of his Swiss Army functions, it would have been a waste.
You're right. And you know
but
what?
As he learns more about the powers.
Yeah, the pacing of this movie is great.
Yeah.
And
I was
it's
never
not
bored.
it's not a short movie either. I think it's a full 2 hours if I'm not mistaken. Not that that's, but nowadays. Oh no, it's not. It's only 140. It's an hour 40.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. No, that's not right. Wait,
98
that is an
minutes.
hour 40. Yeah, that's an hour 40.
138.
I was like, it's 137 minutes. I know how times work. So it is actually, but yeah, you're right. It never gets boring. And I think the pacing works really well. I think a lot of it also comes from the fact that they withhold information from us.
Mm-hmm.
And they give you little by little bit.
Because we learn more about Hank as we go too.
Exactly. Yeah, we learn about his father. Like that whole thing about his, oh God. About his, like, imagine like having the relationship where both you and your father just send each other automated birthday cards.
Your dad has forgotten your birthday enough that you just say, you know what, why don't we set up an automated thing and that'll be good enough for me.
Sure.
It's not only that you have an unattentive father, it's that you're the kind of person who's like, okay, well, I don't really care about you enough to demand a real birthday greeting anyway.
Right. Yeah, it is sort of a two-way street.
Yeah.
It's like, not only do I not care about getting one from you, but
I'm not going to send you one either.
I'm not going to send you one either. Yeah. Oh, it's so sad. As
It's
a guy with
super
severe
sad.
daddy issues, man, that is very real. Another thing that is totally off of everything we're talking about, but going through it this second time, I also noticed a bit of a commentary on social media. Did you pick up on any of that?
Only the one line where he says, before the internet, girls were a little more... What was the word?
Oh, girls were more precious or something weird?
Something like that.
Well, that was kind of, I mean, somebody could argue that that's sort of a sexist dig. But for me, it was more so about I don't know, I'm going to use the word duality like a shitty fucking critic who thinks he knows what he's talking about. The duality of, I don't even know if it's the right word to use, of him only having essentially access to her Instagram, which, by the way, is very weird when you don't really know, like, if you didn't know who this person was. It adds that
everybody out there on Instagram, make those profiles private, guys.
but it also adds
any
that
asshole can click on it.
And
now.
it adds that second layer of how did he find out who she was if he was just a girl on the bus?
Yeah.
He never explains that. Never
Yeah.
explains how he figured out what her name was or something like that. That's a little dark. But regardless, that he is looking at what is essentially an Instagram. They don't show the Instagram logo, but it's Instagram, right? The social media feed of the photos. It's a photo of their car and a photo of them with their kid. Disneyland. And it's like...
We have just seen all of those moments recreated out in the forest with their little handmade props.
Yes, which is terrifying. But also what it specifies is like, it's a very trite... It's an incredibly trite thing nowadays because people talk about social media all the time. But it's that cliche saying of like, don't compare your behind the scenes to somebody's highlight reel. You've heard that saying before?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
And so...
All you see is all the friends from high school you don't talk to, but you're still friends with on Facebook.
Yeah.
You look at whatever they post. Oh, they went hiking in the Andes Mountains.
Yeah, they have the best life. So
Yeah.
he's looking at this woman's best of her best, right? The shit. And inversely, having this, again, depending on how you want to let this world live in your head, argument with himself or conversations with himself, in which the Larry, I keep forgetting his name. What's
Hank or Manny?
Manny, in which the Manny character is saying like
Swiss Army Manny.
Yeah. Oh, Swiss Army Manny. Yeah, I'll take it. In which he's saying like, why can't that's stupid? Why can't we fart in front of people? Why can't
like there's all these?
Why can't you see the reality?
It's his inner like hatred of all the social rules
exactly
that have been used against him.
Yeah, for sure. And that is
life.
the like, don't really show who you really are because people aren't. You can't do that. Like you can't do that in front of people. You can't show your. You can't show your. You can't show your special skill that we glossed over. Your compass dick, your compass boner.
Yeah.
Do you mean like? And it's that thing of like. Again, I just thought that the fact that all he has of this woman is a social media account, because he doesn't know anything else. He doesn't have any. He's never spoken to her, so he can't have any more information about her real actual life. And inversely, so much of his dialogue is predicated on hiding himself away from society. And I don't know, this second time through, I definitely picked up on like, oh, that definitely feels to me like a conversation about social media in today's society.
Right.
And just the way that we present ourselves to the world and the way that we also expect people to present themselves, the way that we judge people. Let's use that word.
I think in 10 years' time, if not sooner, that concept won't even make sense from this movie. Because more and more people will only understand the point of view, well, if the girls don't talk to me, that's their fault. And it's not going to be an introspective thing anymore. There won't be people like Hank in this movie.
God, really?
There's going to be people who just take it out on the rest of the world. I think social media creates that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting into a completely different topic, but you're right. Like it's those incels.
Incels, yeah.
Yeah, that's a real dark.
I
hope
world. That's a minority of.
It is
guys
for sure.
Like,
I think that's.
Dark minority.
I think that your whole like in 10 years mentality might be a little cynical. I don't disagree that shit's only going to get.
No.
I don't disagree that shit's only going to get worse.
But maybe not that quickly.
But I don't think it's going to be. Or I don't think it's going to be like every. I think there's always going to be a percentage of assholes.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a percentage of human beings, and there's always going to be a percentage.
I just think this movie will become less and less
poignant or
accessible.
Yeah. I don't know that it's accessible yet right now. It is a fucking weird movie. God, so much. Is there anything? I'm trying to think. Is there anything that we didn't cover? Anything that any thoughts or opinions that we?
Oh, as an editor, going through something, making a movie with a dead body involved, and seeing the actor constantly blink, and breathe heavily in the background. Daniel Radcliffe did such a good job, and I'm sure there was some digital help.
Sure.
But he has such a blank face, even when somebody steps out of the way of the light, out of the sun.
Yeah.
And he suddenly gets the sunlight in his eyes. He's not even flinching.
Yeah.
So good. And I didn't see him like breathe when he wasn't supposed to once.
Right. Yeah, because his heart's not working. He's not. Yeah. He was definitely. And I'm curious about the amount of dummies used and amount of like
The only time I noticed a dummy was
in
when
the water.
the water thing, they probably used the same one for when the raccoon was picking at his face.
Right.
It's the
Oh
same
yeah, the
kinda-
raccoon on the face, that was definitely because like the skin texture was a little bit more rubbery
Right.
and it didn't
And
have
any-
any life to it.
Anytime the body was in the water, I'm sure that was
Right,
the
yeah.
dummy.
But even just like with the moving him around and like throwing him over his shoulders, I'm curious about that because it was really seamless. I never noticed it. I never
Right.
specifically was like, oh, again, except for the two aforementioned times, like where I was like, oh, that's clearly just a a fucking dummy because it's just fascinating.
One of my favorite throwaway jokes in the movie. They're going through all the different junk that he finds at
Right.
the cave, and they go like, people throw it away because it's empty or dirty or
Right.
broken or old, and they show a Bible on old.
Yeah. Also, did you notice the Bible was the book?
Yes.
Was like the book.
Everybody poops.
Everybody poops. Oh
They
god.
turned it.
And I love that came around. The writers, they did a really good job of not giving you shit that you didn't need. Like everything had a purpose in it. They bring up Jurassic Park, and then they carry it through the whole movie.
Yeah.
They bring up
Even
which
a
by the
little
way,
shadow puppet play at the
yeah,
end. He's doing
and I love
the
that they-
T-Rex chase.
but I also love that they did like a bunch of movies. They did like E.T.
E.T. was
and
in
they did
there.
Jaws. They did
some sort of car chase thing going
yeah,
on.
yeah. There was some fun stuff in there, but they carried that through the movie. The poop thing they carried all the way to like the bear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of the little things that you think are just going to be like, oh, here's like a one-off conversation that the writer had. Like, oh, this would be a good idea for a conversation in a movie. I mean, I have that. Like,
Right.
as a writer, I have notes in my phone that are not from a specific movie or not an idea for a specific movie, but that are literally, oh, here's a fun conversation.
Just a thought for something. Yeah.
I thought that would be an interesting conversation to have between two characters that I don't know who they are yet.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie doesn't feel, for a first movie, it doesn't feel like those are crammed in there. And I'm sure some of them are, but they just made them work.
It feels very natural.
It feels super natural.
Everything comes out of the
Supernatural.
hyper natural. I don't know.
Sure, sure.
Alternative word there.
Yeah. But you're saying everything comes out of like
Everything comes out of the central concept,
right.
which is he's living in his head
Yeah.
out in the wilderness, and
Right.
like he imagines himself lost on an island because that's how he sees himself in the world.
Right. Because he is a man on an island. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, what do you think about the opening being him trying to commit suicide?
Hell of a start.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, even if it was a castaway, like a literal, he's
Right.
on an island kind of movie, that tells you so much about the character.
Right,
just
right off
from
the bat,
the
yeah.
one act.
I
Like
think
in
that-
Castaway, apparently Tom Hanks tried to. He was setting up a rope
Right,
to kill himself, but he
right.
tried it with a dummy first, and it didn't like break
Right.
the neck or something. So he would have just
Yeah.
dangled there until
Yeah,
he
yeah,
died.
yeah,
That would have
yeah.
been awful.
I feel like if it wasn't such a hilarious opening moments later, that would have been actually an unfortunate opening because we learned so much about his desires and his desire to actually live among the people that to start him off just being like, I'm over it.
Well, it's
Yeah.
super dark already.
But not to mention that we still don't know whether he would have gone through with it
No,
because he didn't purposely knock the cooler out from underneath him when he saw
and then the rope
and then
broke
the rope
anyway.
broke anyway. Yeah. But God, it's just such a weird fucking movie, man. It's so unique.
During the first scene when that happened, I had a fear that was like, oh, the rest of the movie is going to be him dangling on the rope. And it's all in his head. And he really does die.
Oh, like at the end of the movie, they were going to cut back to him just dangling.
Yeah, like actually dying.
Oh, that would have been the worst.
That's such a,
That'd have been
it
such
was
a
all a dream
gut
kind
punch.
of a,
Yeah.
and
I
him
don't
being
dislike-
crazy is
I-
almost that anyway.
Right. I don't dislike the it's all a dream when it makes you at the end go like, oh shit, okay.
Mhm.
But when it's just like to be a dick, which is what that would have been. That would have been like, let's make it a dream. Why? Just to be a dick
Let's
to people.
punish the audience.
Yeah, let's punish the audience. Yeah, I mean, yeah, my notes, man, we're all like just remembering how this movie was just on the brink of crushing your soul, right up to the very end, and then
Yeah,
they
could have
kind of-
gone either way at any point.
It really could have.
There weren't any rules, and that's why it feels so groundbreaking.
Yeah,
'Cause there is sort of a 3-act structure.
yeah, for sure.
It does build to something, but because you can't tell where it's going, it feels very free.
For sure.
You're not watching a Hollywood movie.
Also, not to mention that I feel like this movie, there are a lot of movies out there where if you take out Act 2, they still work emotionally.
Mm.
There's a lot of movies out there like that.
Because that's all just the filler fun stuff.
Because that's
action scenes.
Yeah, because that's where your trailer comes from.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and I think that this movie, when you pull out Act 2, you just lose 100% of the heart of it. Like all of the heart is in Act 2.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and all of the art. I mean, that whole
Act 1. What do you think? That ends when he first talks.
Act 1 probably ends.
Maybe when they first get to the cave.
No, I think you're right. I think the water, maybe. I think Act 1 is probably the water.
Okay.
Oh my God, because that's when you realize, oh, he's more than just one thing. He's gonna do multiple things. Because the water is only the second tool that he offers.
And then if you skip ahead to maybe the bear scene at the campsite, that
probably.
Yeah, you have nothing to hang on to.
Exactly. Yeah.
And what happens to him doesn't matter.
Exactly. Yeah. Which I know, like you said, a lot of indie movies, you say like the reins are off and it could go anywhere. And as much as this movie does go anywhere, it does give you all of the things that you need a good story structure to give you. Whereas some indie movies are just a little bit too easy. It has so many payoffs. Yeah, man. Swiss Army Man, multi-tool. What was his name?
Multifunction tool guy.
Multifunction tool guy.
Yeah, highly recommended.
Highly recommended.
I'm glad you forced me to watch this.
Nice.
And that's good when it works on this podcast because that's the whole fucking point.
Yeah.
You don't want to it's all about forcing your friends to watch something new that they otherwise wouldn't. And this is that.
This is that. Yeah, we did it. We did the podcast.
Yeah.
Do you think that Chad would have liked it?
For sure.
Yeah,
I think it's right up his alley.
Do you think he's seen it or no?
I bet he has.
Yeah. This movie, when I was making the list, it is unfortunate that Chad couldn't join us today, but because I was like, oh, I bet you Chad has seen this because this does seem like a Chad movie.
Yeah.
Just knowing his history, knowing his feature that he's made, which I know he probably doesn't talk about on the show ever because he probably doesn't like it and doesn't like talking about it. He seems like that guy.
He's spoken of the experience,
right,
maybe not the movie.
Yeah, when I had him on a podcast I do called Elaborate, I had him on and we talked about it. And he's just
constantly plugging other things.
Listen, hold on. Listen, I'm not going to tell you that we also have a t-shirt shop at dragonmagshop.com that has original designs. I'm not going to tell you that because that's like one too many things to tell you.
Anyway, elaborate.
Anyway, we had it on and I just remember I
pronounce it elaborate.
Elaborate. I always tell people you can say whatever you want. I remember trying to explain to him that despite the fact that when you make a movie, inevitably you hate it when it's over. You just can't help but hate your own movie when it's all said and done because it was an awful process.
Right. It's time consuming and expensive and everybody hates each other.
I had to watch that movie a ton, more than I think most of our friends who probably saw it once because I did the subtitling for it for distribution.
I watched at least 8 different versions of the movie.
Throughout time. Sure. So for you, it's all jumble. I only watched the one finished product. And the movie, it inspires me as a filmmaker. I give Chad so much credit because it has this mentality.
It has a unique vibe to it.
Yeah, it has this mentality of if I had that idea, I probably wouldn't have followed through with it. I probably would have thrown it away because I would have thought, no, that's too unrealistic or that's too zany or people aren't going to get behind that. I would have stunted my own creativity. And Chad put that out, and I know that it got rewritten and re-edited and all these different weird versions of the stories.
I think there was a 2.5 hour, 3 hour cut.
Probably, but whatever it is, I give him so much credit. We're talking, of course, hopefully the people who listen to the show know. We're talking about Apocalypse California is the name of the product.
Go to iTunes, buy it, throw Chad a couple bucks.
Apocalypse CA.
CA, yeah.
And I think there's a comma in there too. But it's just this fucking weird movie, and it's like the end of this movie, when the credits roll, you're not entirely informed. You don't have 100% of all the information that maybe you wish you had, but it's fucking entertaining from start to finish.
Yes.
And this movie has that sort of thing, which is why...
super weird, but it's fun.
Super weird, but never a dull moment.
Right.
And this movie, man, there's never a dull moment in this movie at all whatsoever. So I think Chad would enjoy it. We should do a little mini follow-up and find out whether or not Chad watched it or enjoyed it.
Next time, hopefully next week, he'll be available.
Yeah.
If you want to do another one of these.
Oh, I would love to do as many of these as you will have me on because I fucking love talking about movies.
Everybody has at least 20 movies they want to force other people to watch.
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, again, we have now
the list only gets bigger.
4 or 5 of them off of the list. You know what? I'm going to save all the little pieces of paper. I'm going to put them in a little Ziploc bag and I'm going to label it "The hell with this," and then we'll have the same ones to choose from next time.
Sweet.
And
and once we're done, we can kill you and dispose of the body.
Oh no! Well, who knows? Maybe I'll end up washing ashore and saving somebody's life.
Maybe you'll prove more useful than we think.
Can I tell you? I already have that sort of flatulence.
Yeah. I mean, after I eat certain kinds of protein, holy shit.
Yeah. I'm a big coffee drinker, so I'm pretty sure I could get somebody across the Pacific. All right.
All right. Last minute plugs.
How do we do it? Oh, last minute plugs?
You were much better at the plugging than me. You've been doing it all episode.
Yeah, I'm a pro. God damn it. You follow me on Twitter at Liquid Jake, on Instagram at Jake Lloyd. No, I'm not that one. I'm a better one. And please follow at It's Dragon Wagon on all social media. Dragon Wagon Radio is a completely independent podcast network, and essentially, you know, what Dragon Wagon does is it offers aid to people like Chad and Mark who already are doing something great and who only benefit from being part of something. You know, Dragon Wagon can barely take credit for what this show is, which I think is incredible and super fun, and you guys are really enjoyable to listen to. That is entirely you, but you know, we help you with all the other stuff. We help with the podcast art and the publishing and all that kind of little.
You're helping to bring it to the world.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all about creating a community. We have got a great community of podcasters of all different styles from all different shows.
You got a wrestling show, you got a mythology
wrestling show, a Greek mythology show called Myth Understood. Also, it's I can say it's brand new. We've been going on now for, oh God, what do we have? 15 episodes out already, 15 weeks. If you're a fan of role-playing games or fantasy or just storytelling, even if you're not a fan of RPGs, we've got a really fun D&D inspired role-playing game called Dungeons and Dragon Wagon, which if you think that listening to people play D&D sounds awful and monotonous, check our show out, because we cut out all of the fat and we edit it down and sound design it like a feature film.
Just getting the adventure part.
Yeah, exactly. And so by the time it's all edited down and sound designed and scored, it sounds like a radio drama or like a radio play. So we cut out anything that is pretty much not in the world, sans like, you know, the roles and the stuff that does make D&D interesting, you know. And
when
it's,
somebody gets a 1, that's big.
It's fun. Yeah, it's enjoyable. Yeah, and it's really fun. And we have, you know, tons of people that leave reviews on iTunes that say like, hey, I've never played D&D before, and this show is maybe want to play D&D because it's so fun and weird. And so check it out. It's called Dungeons and Dragon Wagon. And we're halfway through our first season. We're going to do like a limited amount of chapters and move on to a different story. It's DM'd by Paul Bianchi. It features myself, Alexandra Hoy, and former guest of this show, Matt Hinksman.
Correct.
And we are the adventurers, and it's a ton of fun. So that's the thing that I think I want to promote the most. Check out, it's at DNDW Pod on all social media. It's called Dungeons and Dragon Wagon. Check it out. If you're a fan of storytelling, I think you'll enjoy it because it's a completely unique world. We're not playing somebody's canned story. Like a lot of D&D campaigns are. It's a completely original world created by Paul Bianchi and fleshed out by the characters that we play. And it's very story-driven, very character-driven. It's light on the rules, and it's heavy on the role-playing. And so check that out.
I'm going to have to check this out.
Good.
I don't have time for another podcast in my life. God damn it.
Well, you know, listen, we all have to make sacrifices.
Yeah, I'll unsubscribe from like the political news ones that just make
honestly,
me mad.
You know what? Once go out and vote, please, for me. First off, once we're done,
this is coming out way after the election.
Well, then vote at the next one. Yeah, all of them.
We need you in 2020.
But
guys.
with that said, yeah, you know what's happening in the world. Stop listening to people argue about things that you already know are true, and listen to something entertaining.
That's an excellent piece of advice. So stop arguing about what is or is not true.
Right.
Wow. Yeah. I'm Mark Heiliger on Twitter. It is spelled how it sounds.
Thanks for pronouncing that right for me.
Heiliger. What did you say?
You always say that I'm the only person who gets it right.
Oh.
When I say your name, you always go, thank you so much for pronouncing my name right.
I get a lot of Heiligers and Highlanders.
Highlanders.
I've gotten a piece of mail to Mark Highlander.
Highlander. I mean,
there can be only one.
If you were going to change your name to anything,
Yeah. Great.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. You were telling people how to find you on the Twitters and the Instagrams.
Oh, that was it. You spell my name, you'll find me.
Fantastic.
If you can figure it out, you win.
Thank you so much for having me, Mark. This has been absolute blast. This movie was so damn fun. I hope the listeners enjoy it, and I hope they enjoy our rambling about how much we enjoyed it.
They'd better.
It's Dragon Wagon.
Gamebox Monthly sends a new awesome indie tabletop game right to your door every month. There are multiple subscriptions to choose from, and you can personalize them to fit your style. Also, you're guaranteed to never get a title you already have, letting you focus on what matters most, having a great time with great people.
So visit GameBoxMonthly.com and use the promo code DRAGON to get an exclusive discount just for the Hell With This listeners.
Once again, that's GameBoxMonthly.com.
Rediscover social.